Hello everyone and welcome back to Noir at the Bar digital style for our second evening together like this. And do you know, although we can't gather together physically in the Wash Bar here in Edinburgh as we were doing, it's wonderful that we can join together online. I just want to thank everybody who viewed the initial Noir at the Bar Edinburgh Digital that we put on 2 weeks ago. It's great to see so many people have actually gone back and watched those recordings of the authors doing their readings. And so grateful again to the authors and to the viewers for supporting us in this venture. If you don't know me, my name's Jacky Collins. I'm also known as Dr. Noir, half of the Honey Stag Literary Events team. The other half is my amazing partner in crime, Kelly Lacey, who is also the technical whiz kid behind this and the brains really behind Noir at the Bar Edinburgh, keeping it going, bringing authors in and publicising the event. So huge thank you, Kelly. So, to set us off this evening, I hope you're sitting comfortably and I hope you're well and safe where you are. We have for us tonight an author whose debut I am longing to be able to publicise. Susie Aspley read for us. Her first reading was in public was at Noir at the Bar Edinburgh, and so proud of the way that she's developed her work, and it's just waiting there for the right publisher to put it out to everyone. So we wish you all the very best, Susie. Just to give you a little bit of insight into Susie, if you've never met her before, she was born in South Shields, and she started a book after a writing prompt, and that writing prompt was 6 human teeth in a matchbox. And it reminded her of a story she once covered as a reporter. She's lived in Scotland now for more than 25 years and was a journalist on a regional newspaper for more than a decade. After pitching successfully at Dragon's Pen last summer, she won Bloody Scotland's Pitch Perfect competition. And if we were at Noir at the Bar right now, you know you'd be going, woo! And what a woo that would be. She was shortlisted as a new writer at the inaugural Capital Crime Festival in 2019. And as I say, her debut novel, One for Sorrow, is currently out for submission. So please, Susie, let's hear your reading. Susie, thank you for such a chilling extract there from One for Sorrow. That's certainly got the goosebumps rising from the offset. Dark and very menacing tale there. Thank you. On to our next author, C.S. Duffy. She's been a screenwriter for more than a decade, and when that made her so bitter, she caught herself cycling past the office of a production company, giving it the finger. She quit the film industry and went to teach nursery in Stockholm. During the kids' naps, she wrote Life is Sweet, a thriller in the form of a blog, which caused several readers to contact Swedish news agencies asking why they weren't reporting on the murders. It led her into the wonderful world of self-publishing, and 2 years later, her best-selling series Glasgow Kiss was selected for Crime in the Spotlight at Bloody Scotland in 2018. Ooh, Claire, another Bloody Scotland spotlighter there. Wonderful. In addition to her own books, her supernatural thriller The Stranger is currently running on Storytel in English, Swedish, Danish, and she has several film and TV projects in development in the UK and Sweden. She's mostly stopped giving producers the finger now. Very wise, I think. After emigrating to Sweden on a whim, she now lives between Glasgow and Stockholm. I like that idea. What a fine split, two wonderful cities. And got the idea from her first crime thriller whilst working on an oil refinery in Ohio. So, settle back while Claire reads us from something that seems to prove that the Scandinavian dream, the idyll, maybe isn't everything that it's meant to be.
Hello Noir at the bar, here we go with Behind Blue Eyes. Finally, I emerged from the trees onto another rocky beach on the other side of the island, and the sight that greeted me took my breath away. The sunrise sat brooding on the horizon, a furious blood red, turning the sky the deepest, purest shades of pinks and oranges I had ever seen. Scarlet and amber and cerise and ochre were reflected on the glass-like sea, making it look as though it were somehow peacefully on fire and silhouetting the pine trees on neighbouring islands in black. It was spectacular. I resolved to go back to the party and to try again, to climb onto Johan's lap, do a quick couple of shots to catch up with him, and ask him to teach me that song about doing housework again. I'd even choke down a bit more herring if it helped. It was all fine. It was all new. We were strangers. I was an awkward midsummer virgin intruding on a celebration that was clearly precious to them. Mia hadn't really meant anything about Johan. She was just a bit pissed. And of course, Johan and Liv had an air of intimacy, for heaven's sake. They'd been friends since they were kids. And Christer couldn't possibly think I was a complete moron. He didn't even know me. He just had resting judgmental face. I'd been out of step with things, which was totally natural, and it had left me feeling a bit oversensitive and wobbly, and more than a bit daft. I took a deep breath. It was just like I'd said to Mia. In years to come, we'd look back on our first midsummer together and piss ourselves laughing at how tense and weird it was. It was about then that I noticed I was staring at a human skeleton tangled in the reeds at the edge of the water. Dun dun dun.
C.S. Duffy, thank you for showing us there that the bright midsummer nights of Scandinavia can hide the darkest of dark secrets. And whose was that skeleton there, tangled in the reeds? Next reader is the award-winning blogger who writes for Crime Book Junkie, is Noelle Holton, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with her blog posts, the reviews that she provides for us, and the support, the wonderful support that she affords the writing community. She's PR and social media manager for Bookouture, a leading digital publisher in the UK. Noelle worked as a senior probation officer for 18 years, with 6 years spent in a police station as part of a multi-agency scheme. And her 2 teams there covered a variety of cases, including those involving serious domestic abuse. She has 3 BA Hons degrees in philosophy, sociology, specialising in crime and deviance, and community justice, and a master's in criminology. Noelle's hobbies include reading, attending as many book festivals as she can afford, and sharing the book love via her blog. And again, I say we're very, very grateful for the work that she does there. Dead Inside, her debut novel with one more chapter, HarperCollins UK, is an international Kindle bestseller and the start of a new series featuring DC Maggie Jameson. Now, a fun fact about this author is that she's obsessed with Jack the Ripper, and she collects books related to the various series, posters, plaques, and other tokens. And although she's no idea who he really was, she loves reading what other people think and why. This evening, she is going to read to us from Dead Wrong. The ebook for this novel was published in March this year, and the paperback is out on May the 14th. The ebook, she wants us to know, is currently available 99 cents in the US for the whole month of April. So there's still time to get this fabulous novel at an amazing price if you're over there in the US. So it gives me great pleasure to say, Noel Holton, please, if you will, read to us.
Thanks to Jackie and Kelly for having me. I'm just going to read a quick excerpt from Chapter 1 of Dead Wrong. Lorraine. So, are you dangerous? Lorraine danced around the hall playfully. He frowned. To her, he looked unsure whether she was serious or flirting. The party had been epic, and she was still buzzing from all the cocaine in her system. Tilting his head, he stared directly into her eyes. Do I look dangerous? He caressed her arm. The goosebumps rose on her skin, and she wondered whether he was toying with her. Her body shivered with excitement. A knock on the front door made them stop. Are you expecting company? She pouted her lips, hoping that he would get rid of whoever it was quickly. He looked through the peephole, his hands clenching into fists, his body stiffening. What the fuck? He muttered and stepped outside. Wonder what that's about. Lorraine walked over to the couch, sat down, and made herself comfortable. Within 10 minutes, he returned to the room. Everything okay? She tucked a lock of hair behind her ear. Yeah, fine. Shall we get this party started? He sat down beside her and caressed her leg. She reached across him, picked up the plastic bag of white powder and shook it. Can we have a bit of this first? Oh, babe, I have something better in mind for you. A little something special. I'm not so sure about that, hun. I prefer a bit of sniff these days, if I'm honest. Gear doesn't sit well with me anymore. She rubbed her forearms. Come on, babe, don't be like that. Thought you trusted me. I promise, this stuff is out of this world. It'll make you feel so good. She thought for a moment, imagined the needle piercing her arm and a warm glow consuming her. Fuck it, you only live once. He smiled as he wrapped the tourniquet around her arm, choosing a vein, tapping the needle twice before inserting it into her arm. That's right, babe. You only live once. The world shut down around her. She lay back on the couch and let the gear take over. When she finally came around, she was tied to a bed, her eyes and mouth covered with some form of material bag. The stink of urine and sweat filled her nose, and the low, gut-wrenching moan she heard echoing off the walls told her she wasn't alone. Thank you.
Noelle, such a wicked laugh there at the end of your reading. And poor Lorraine, well, to find out what happens to that character, you all know what to do. Get your hands on Dead Wrong and read through. Our next author, I had the great privilege of being at his launch in Glasgow last year, and would love if at some time he could return to Scotland and read for us at Noir at the Bar, Edinburgh. So our author next is Owen Mullen. He is a McIlvenney Crime Book of the Year and best-selling author. He graduated from Strathclyde University, moved to London, worked as a rock musician, a session singer and songwriter, and he had a hit record in Japan with a band he refuses to name. He still loves to perform on occasion. His passion for travel has taken him on many adventures from the Amazon and Africa to the colourful continent of India and Nepal. A gregarious recluse, he and his wife Christine now split their time between Glasgow and their home in the Greek islands, where he writes. And a fun fact about Owen is that he loves taking famous songs and rewriting them from another singer's perspective. And the examples he gives are, for example, Scarlet Ribbons by Chaz and Dave, A Lovely Bunch of Coconuts by Stevie Wonder, or Rocket Man by Jimmy Nail. Owen, when you get back over this side of the world, I think you should perform one of those for us as well. Anyway, without further ado, here's Owen Mullen reading to us from Deadly Harm.
Hi, I'm Owen Mullen. First up, I hope you're all looking after yourself and staying well. I'd like to thank Jacky and Kelly for inviting me to be part of Noir at the Bar. Maybe I can get there in person someday. I'm going to read an extract from my book Deadly Harm. We take up the action right at the beginning with two women in a garden in the shadow of the Campsie Hills. They're busy. They're digging a grave. How deep does it need to be? Mackenzie didn't raise her head. The question was beyond naive. Deep. Caitlin gushed nonsense. I'll go to the police. Maybe. Forget it. This wasn't your fault. I said, forget it. Mackenzie breathed heavily through her nose. Andrew had been waiting with the news when they got back from the coast. Awful news. She tried not to think about. Now this. A breeze rustled the branches of the trees above them. Mackenzie felt sweat drying on her brow. She closed her eyes, savouring the sensation. Panic was the enemy. No good way down that road. Whatever story they gave the police wouldn't save them now. Digging was their only hope. She let her breath out slowly, forcing herself to stay calm. We had that chance. It's gone. But it's the truth, is it? You know it is. Mackenzie leaned on the spade, struggling to keep hold of her impatience. I'll tell you, Warno. There's a man with half a face lying in our garden. Explain that. I'll tell him he attacked me. We discussed this. The way he died, they'll never believe you. Mackenzie pointed to the trench at her feet. And what will you say about this? Caitlin didn't answer. That's what I thought. She stepped out of the grave. Your turn.
Owen Mullen, everyone. Owen, thank you. And what have these women done, and whose is that body waiting to be buried? And are there more bodies going to be finding their way into that recently dug grave? Our next reader, our next author, is C.L. Taylor. I'm sure many of you are familiar with C.L. Taylor, with Callie's work. She's an award-winning Sunday Times best-selling author. Her 7 standalone psychological thrillers have sold over 1 million copies in the UK alone. And she's been translated into over 20 languages and optioned for television. Fabulous. Her 2019 novel Sleep was a Richard and Judy pick. Now, Callie C.L. Taylor lives in Bristol with her partner and son. And she sends us this fun fact, that she can whistle louder than anyone she knows. Ask her to do it next time you're at a festival or a book launch or a reading with her. Test that one out. This evening, Callie's going to read from Strangers for us, and this is the novel that came out at the beginning of this month. Callie was meant to have so many launches for this fabulous book. Despite what the virus has meant with regard to these publicity moments for so many of our favourite authors, I'm so pleased to know that we are standing by those people who give us such fabulous tales. And if you get a chance to get hold of a copy of Strangers, I know you will not be disappointed. So, reading for us now, C.L. Taylor from Strangers.
As she stands up, she sniffs at the air. There's been an odd smell in the kitchen ever since she moved in. At the time, she put it down to damp. Charlotte's house was riddled with it. This is different. It's a musty, urine-y smell. She opens the door to the garden to let some air in, then fits the key into the tab of metal on the side of the can. She turns it until the lid opens to reveal the slab of processed meat, then grabs a chopping board and squeezes the tin. The corned beef doesn't budge. Sighing, she reaches for a knife from the wooden block, but her favourite, the one with a long, thin blade, isn't there. She looks for it on the draining board, and then in the sink, but the kitchen is as pristine as normal. Other than the missing knife, there isn't a single thing out of place. The knife isn't in any of the drawers or the cupboards. It can't have broken. Edward once told her how indestructible these particular knives are. He must have taken it, although God knows why. She reaches for another knife instead, and slips it in between the slab of corned beef and the tin and wiggles it until the meat slips free. As she carefully slices it, making each slither as thin as she can, the DJ stops speaking, and the first notes of a song, picked out on a guitar, start to play. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ursula slams a hand onto the radio as the drums kick in, and the room falls silent before John Bon Jovi has the chance to sing. She presses her palms onto the counter, heart pounding, breath coming in short, sharp bursts, eyes shut. But it's too late. The song's already in her head, living on a prayer going round and round on a loop. No, she says, as faces appear behind her closed eyelids, laughing and mocking, leering at her. No! She opens her eyes again and stares out into the garden, desperately trying to remember the grounding technique that Charlotte tried to teach her the last time she had a panic attack. 5 things, Ursula says aloud. 5 things I can see. I can see a patio. I can see grass. I can see a tree. I can see a cat. I can see a wall. 4 things I can feel. I can feel the counter under my fingers. I can feel the tiles under my feet. I can feel the air on my lips. I can feel the cold. Her breathing slows as she slowly reconnects with her surroundings. 3 things I can hear. I can hear birdsong. I can hear a drill in the distance. I can hear... She pauses, frowning as she tries to make out the 3rd sound. I can hear scratching. She turns sharply. I can hear scratching coming from the basement door.
Oh, C.L. Taylor, what is to become of Ursula? And what, or who, is scratching at the basement door? Chilling stuff. Thank you. Now, our next reader is a favourite at Noir at the Bar, Edinburgh. Is the wonderful Jacky McLean. Jacky lives in Glasgow and has a varied background, including being a government economist, a political lobbyist, and running a pet shop in Glasgow's south side. You can ask her anything you like about pets. She knows. She's currently working at East Ayrshire Council, where until recently her job involved frequent visits to Kilmarnock Prison. And I hope that wasn't as somebody being locked away. I'm sure it wasn't. She is famous for the Donna Davenport, D.I. Donna Davenport series. The first in that series was Toxic, published by Thunderpoint, followed by Shadows, and her third book in that series, Run, was published in October 2019. And she's currently working on a new series, and we look forward very much to that. Jacky's appeared at a number of crime writing festivals, Newcastle Noir, Crime at the Castle, and literally at New Battle. And Jacky was due as well to appear again at Newcastle Noir 2020 this year. So Jacky, I do hope you'll come back when we run the festival next year, as it was meant to be this year. She's a frequent a reader at Noir at the Bar, both in Edinburgh and at Newcastle, Dundee and Dunfermline. She forms part of the Dangerous Dames and Murder and Mayhem gang, along with a number of other crime writers. And until recently, Jacky ran the writing group at Waterstone's Brayhead, and has also run creative writing sessions with the men at Kilmarnock Prison. So there's the reason why she was making those visits. And the fun fact about Jacky, well, she was once trapped by the incoming tide on Arbroath Beach whilst dressed as a Martian. She says it wasn't fun for her, but it gave spectators up in the car park a laugh. I'm sure it did. Settle back now, though, because I'm sure what Jacky's going to read to us is not a laugh at all. Jacky McLean, everyone.
Hi, I'm Jacky McLean. I write the D.I. Donna Davenport series, and this evening I'm going to read from the second book in the series, Shadows, and I'm just going to jump straight into the middle of the investigation. The heavy door closed silently behind her on well-oiled hinges, but clanged loudly when it locked. She made her way slowly to the second floor where her target lived. She knocked on his door. No answer. She peered through the letterbox. Only silence, no movement inside. She wiped her forehead and glanced back down the stairs. There was nobody about. Keenly aware that she had no warrant, she slipped on her latex gloves and took her bank card out of her pocket. She slid the card into the space between the Yale lock and the door frame, pushed it as far into the crack as it would go, and gently levered the lock back from the latch. Inside, the flat was pleasantly warm and well lit by sunshine streaming in through well-positioned windows. She trod carefully along the plush hall carpet and looked quickly inside 2 rooms as she passed them. On the first impression, this was a flat that had had a lot of money spent on it. All the furnishings were to a high spec. The bathroom was modern, the wall coverings right out of a Homestyles magazine. The kitchen, she noted as she walked by, looked clean and fitted with all mod cons. She came to the end of the hallway and stood in front of a closed door. Her heart beating rapidly, she grasped the door handle and let herself into the living room. Again, it was tastefully decorated. Plush furniture, an expensive TV mounted on the wall, a spectacular marine tank in the corner. But as soon as she turned her head and saw the wall adjacent to the door, she stopped in her tracks. With her eyes widening in alarm, she slowly approached the wall and studied the detail. "Oh my God," she whispered. As she drew her phone from her pocket, she needed to photograph this. Then her stomach lurched as she heard a boom from outside, and she knew the flat's occupant had come home. As if that wasn't bad enough, it sounded as though he wasn't alone. She scampered across the living room and dived behind the sofa, just as the front door opened. Bracing herself, she drew her phone from her pocket. She needed to photograph the wall. She aimed quickly and took a burst of photos, then ducked back down. The living room door opened, and she heard his voice more clearly now. But something wasn't right. She angled her head so she could peek around the side of the sofa. And suddenly, she found herself staring into a pair of eyes that made the skin on her face freeze in terror. She dropped her phone and tried to scream, but the sound stuck in her throat. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
So will Donna Davenport save the day? Will that photo and location be enough for her to come to the rescue? And what will befall Fran? Fantastic detectives, investigators, and our next author brings us just one of those, but takes us to a different period in time. We're going to step back a little bit in time with our next author, Sara Sheridan. Now, Sara writes the popular 1950s Maribel Bevan murder mysteries, as well as historical novels set between 1820 and 1845. Sara's fascinated by female history, and she recently remapped Scotland according to women's history to memorialise our forgotten foremothers. In 2014, she was named one of the Saltire Society's 365 most influential Scottish women past and present. Fabulous, Sara. Well done for that. And she's currently working on a novel set in 1820s Edinburgh. But Maribel's eighth mystery, set in 1958, is set to be out in June this year and set in Scotland. Yes, it's called Highland Fling. Fabulous title. Fun fact about Sara is she always smells amazing. And if you've ever met Sara, you know this to be the case. The reason being, of course, is that she used to run a feminist perfume company called Reek. But back to tonight's reading. And Sarah's going to read to us from Indian Summer, which is Maribel Bevan's mystery. It's number 7. Maribel has become suspicious about a priest who volunteers at a local children's home, and she follows him home to see what he's up to. When she breaks in, this.
Gingerly, she pulled herself over the sill and dropped onto the floor. Beneath her feet it was uneven, not tile or carpet, but some kind of bundle. Maribel wondered if she'd landed on a pile of laundry. She bent down, peering through the darkness, and that was when she made him out. A thin speck of yellow vomit ran down the old priest's cheek. His dog collar had become detached. Maribel checked for a pulse and quickly realised he was gone. The smell of sweat rose towards her, and before she could stifle it, a scream had escaped. It was the shock, she realised. She glanced at the open window, regretting her decision, but it was too late for that now. Then there was a hammering sound and the bathroom door crashed open. What the hell? A man's voice. There could be no explanation, she realised, but she took a breath to try when a cricket bat hit her hard in the face. For a second she was aware that the electric light had been switched on, and then darkness engulfed her. Sound was the first thing to return. Before she could move or speak or open her eyes, Maribel could hear. Her nose ached and her head pounded. She wanted to tell them to be quiet, but she couldn't get the words out. Instead, she tried to focus on the voices, a man giving instructions and another man talking about injuries sustained. Slowly she realised the second man was talking about her. With an effort, she opened one eye just a sliver. The light was like a paper cut. There, the voice said, she's coming round. She could smell something acrid, but it cleared her head. She was still on the bathroom floor in the priest's house. Above her, a man put a cap on a bottle of smelling salts. He had startling blue eyes. "Miss Bevan," he said, smiling as he held up one hand, "can you tell me how many fingers I'm showing, please?" "4," she said. The man's brow creased. "And a thumb," she added. He smiled. "She's fine," he announced, looking over his shoulder. From the vicinity of the wash-hand basin, Inspector Robinson came into view. "Good," Robinson said. "Well, if she's sure she's all right, Doctor. Maribel Bevan, I'm arresting you for the murder of Father Sean Grogan."
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for bringing Maribel to us there. And will she be able to prove her innocence in this case? Well, our next author is going to take us Dead in Deep Water. Dave Sivers, he grew up in West London and he's been writing all his life. His books include the popular crime series featuring the Aylesbury Vale Detectives, D.I. Lizzie Archer and D.S. Dan Baines. His next novel, In Ink, will introduce us to D.I. Nathan Quarrell, and that will be published soon. If it's not already come out, I think. I've been seeing copies anyway on Facebook. And again, please, if you can get hold of Dave's writing, I wholeheartedly encourage you to do so. Dave lives in Buckinghamshire and is a founder of the annual Beacon Lit Festival of Books and Writing. And a fun fact about Dave: sometimes things come out that you never know about authors until they proffer these little tidbits. Well, he co-wrote Mary, a Nativity musical with 14 original songs. I think come Christmas time we might ask for a performance of one or two of these, Dave, if you're up for it. But for now, no musicality and no hilarity, because now Dave is going to take us to his reading, which is, as I said, from the novel Dead in Deep Water.
Hi, this is from the first chapter of Dead in Deep Water, which begins with two teenagers sneaking away early in the morning to visit the local swimming hole. The water was freezing, its chill not yet affected by the morning sun. How deep do you reckon it was? Emily wondered. Will was vaguely aware that it was about 5 metres deep, though he had no idea how he would know such a fact. He said so. There must be all kinds of crap down there. Bet you can't get down there and bring me something up. He looked at her, saw the dare in her eyes. This was a chance to either impress her or to look a wuss. What sort of something? Well, I don't care, as long as it's not something gross like a used condom. He thought about challenging her to a race to the bottom, but thought he'd look bad if she beat him. No problemo, he said. He filled his lungs and ducked under. He was a strong underwater swimmer, and he clove through the water, confident with each stroke that he would succeed. The water was a bit murky, but clearer than he'd expected. As he went deeper, he began to make out outlines on the bottom. Rubbish that had either been dumped there or had been left when the quarry ceased to operate before it had filled with water. As he wondered what to grab for Emily, his eye was caught by a sizable pink shape on the bottom. He idly wondered what it was. Probably too large to drag up with him, but maybe worth a closer look. He swam in its direction. A few more strokes and he was face to face with it. Then he was clawing his way to the surface, his heart hammering in his ears, a sight he would never forget etched indelibly on his brain. A girl, lying on her back on the bed of the water-filled quarry, her skin marble pale, red hair streaming out like flaming seaweed, and the eyes glassy and staring, as if she could see right through him.
Dave Sivers, everyone. The stuff of nightmares, truly. Doubly, even. A dead body and underwater. Well, it's time for us just to catch our breath one last time for our final author of the evening. Someone who only very recently we welcomed to Edinburgh to the Wash Bar for the launch of the 6th novel in the series. The reader in question is Helen Fields, and that novel, Perfect Kill. Helen is an international and is an Amazon #1 best-selling author, a former criminal and a family law barrister. Every book in the Kalanack series has claimed a Amazon #1 best-selling flag. And this most recent novel, Perfect Kill, came out in February 2020. She also writes as H.S. Chandler, and last year releasing a legal thriller called Degrees of Guilt. Now, her previous audiobook, Perfect Crime, knocked none other than Michelle Obama off the #1 spot. Good going, Helen. Translated into over 15 languages and selling in the US, Canada, and Australasia. Helen's books have won, and quite rightly so, global recognition. Her first historical thriller, These Lost and Broken Things, is due to come out in May 2020, and a further standalone thriller published by HarperCollins hopefully will also come out soon. Before lockdown, Helen was commuting between Hampshire, Scotland, and California, where she lives with her husband and her 3 children. And I hope, Helen, you'll be able to travel again soon and come back to us. The final fun fact for this evening about Helen is that she featured regularly in an American TV series called Better Off Ted that aired back in 2010. And it was the show about an American science research company. Halfway through, they'd do a mock-up of a fake corporate video. Now, she appears in plenty of shots, but most often when the voiceover is talking about what a complete bitch the boss is. I can't believe they're saying that about Helen Fields. Not at all. So, for one last time this evening, we are sitting comfortably. Helen Fields, please read to us.
Hi, I'm Helen Fields. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of Edinburgh's digital Noir at the Bar. I hope everybody's keeping well and safe at home, and sending love from California. Today I'm going to be doing a quick reading from my latest book in the Kalanack series, Perfect Kill, and I'm bringing you in at the start of chapter 23. D.I. Pax Graham looked like a giant compared to the body laid out on the post-mortem suite table, and it wasn't just because of his height and frame, imposing as that was. Ava dragged herself into a disposable fluid-resistant suit and joined her detective inspector and the deputy pathologist. They all stared down at the body. Ava sighed. "Where's his head?" she asked. "No sign of it as yet," Graham responded. "Was he alive when his head was cut off, or was that done later?" The corpse was a mess, and that was a pretty high bar, considering where they were and how many bodies they'd seen between them. Ava rubbed her forehead. The body was lying on its back, a sheet revealing only the section between the man's waist and his severed neck. "I haven't had long with the body yet, but the spine is broken in several places, and there are large impact bruises on the backs of the thighs, buttocks, back and the rear of the arms. Also broken ribs, 3 of which punctured the left lung. I'd say a fall, followed by massive internal bleeding. The decapitation looks to me to have been aimed at avoiding identification. There's very little blood on either the plastic sheeting he was found in or on the body, suggesting there was minimal blood loss as the head was removed." "And the marks around the neck?" "The skin around the wound was destroyed. Strings of it lay limply against the table, and jagged slash marks went inches down what remained of the neck. It's a sawing wound. The long wisps of loose skin indicate the use of a manual saw rather than an electric one, hence the scratches where the saw has gone off course down the lower neck. The problem with a manual saw is that the more soft tissue gets caught in the blade, the more it gets tangled, and clumps of flesh form. He pointed at a large lump of mangled tissue, not that his point needed illustrating. The picture was already clearly drawn. "How did you conclude that it's an attempt to prevent identification?" Graham asked. The pathologist pulled the sheet back to reveal the ends of the arms. They stopped at the wrists.
What a fabulous way to end this Noir at the Bar Edinburgh digital together. Thank you so much, Helen Fields. You read macabre with such style and class, and thank you so much for that. Wonderful readings this evening from all the authors, and if there's been a theme that runs through it tonight, and often these things happen, they just emerge without us actually putting those stories together, but it's been that notion of the dead body and to a certain extent the unknown dead body in very unfortunate circumstances and in a sorry state. Again, I think we've had quite a macabre evening at Noir at the Bar. It only remains for me to thank all our authors for fabulous readings. Thank you to you for being there again, for joining us for a fine slice of crime fiction. And once again, I would like to thank Kelly Lacey for holding all this together and for keeping the criminal book club going whilst we're under lockdown. Come back to us, if you will, for the month of May, when we have another 2 fine selections for you of crime writers. Watch for our ads on Facebook and on Twitter, where you'll see us at Noir at the Bar Edinburgh Digital and also Honey and Stag Literary Events. Thank you again, everyone. Stay safe, stay well, stay home, and see you in May. Goodbye for now.